Well, of course, coming off not just draft weekend, but also futures game weekend. Always a man that we look to talk to about all of these types of topics. He is a man you know from MLB Network, MLB.com, and MLB Pipeline. He's our friend Jim Callis, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Jim, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you as always. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh yeah, glad to be here.
Jim, I just want to ask you this question generically because there was a lot of attention paid to, and it didn't start very early, but still kind of earlier than usual. The sheer number of pitchers that the Orioles drafted this year. Do you make anything of like the argument that this is a sea change, or versus they just happened to take some pitchers?
Wait a minute. They took 3 pitchers in the first 8 rounds, so now they're pitching heavy. But no, that's not a sea.
To be fair, that's more than 0, Jim.
That's true. And but I mean, last year they took Joseph Dzierwa and JT Quinn. They had multiple picks in the second round. They took 2 guys. No, I was like, where are you going with this? I'm looking at their draft. I see 1 pitcher in the first 5 rounds. I just think, and again, I haven't had this conversation with Mike Elias, so I'm extrapolating a little bit here. When he was with the Astros, you look at all the success they had. They took guys early in the draft like Forrest Whitley and Brady Aiken, and that didn't work out. And most of the best pitchers on their good clubs were either mid-round draft picks, really cheap international signs that they did a great job on, and they went out and traded. Like, people forget this. Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke, and Garrett Cole, who are probably going to be 3 Hall of Famers one day.
Yeah.
So I just think the mindset is, like, we have, like, this regime has not had success drafting pitchers in the first round, and the Astros really, all the success they had when Mike was there, didn't really have any first round pitchers. I mean, Lance McCullers was a supplemental first round, not a true first rounder, but I think that was kind of one of the secrets to the Astros' success, is they were able to find pitching without spending a lot of draft capital on it. The flip side of that argument is,
the Orioles have not replicated
one place
that.
doesn't always work the other place.
And I think that's the part, Jim, that we all keep coming back to. Like, the Orioles have not been able to replicate that success. And it's not as if, look, a stealth trade for Kyle Bradish that has clearly worked through injuries. Trevor Rogers has worked more than it hasn't, but they have not.
Corbin Burns was good while they had him.
For a year, right? Exactly right. They have not been able to replicate the success the Astros had in finding pitching that route. Are you surprised that, particularly given the kind of how up against it they appear to be as an organization at the moment, that they haven't considered exploring another strategy for making pitching work?
I don't know. Like, this, and to be fair, this would not have been the year to make it work. We had, what was it, 2 pitchers taken in the top 20 picks? I mean, there was some depth in pitching, but like certainly at number 7, unless Jackson Flora from UC Santa Barbara was there, and I honestly, that would have been interesting, because I don't know that I believe that. I will believe the Orioles will take a pitcher in the first round when they take him. I don't know that they would have taken Jackson Flora necessarily. Like, maybe if Paul Skeens was there at 7 or something. But like, this wasn't a draft where you want to force it. I think the more interesting thing is, you look at the guys they've taken in a lot of the recent drafts have been these tooled up guys with questions about their ability to make contact or have impact at the plate.
And they're not getting better.
But I'm saying they didn't go that route this year with their first 2 picks. So with Eric Booth Jr., who I know we'll talk about these guys, is a quality athlete, but he's got aptitude. And Ty Head stands out. He's one of the best bat to ball guys, and he has tools in college baseball. So I think to me, that was kind of the difference compared to what they've done in the past.
He is Jim Callis. He's with us here on GCR. You brought him up, so let's go there. We'll start with Eric Booth. They go the high school route this time with a bat. Obviously, a bat has always been their first-round pick in the Mike Elias read, but a high school bat has not always been the case. Clearly, Jackson Holliday was. Like, it's not as if they haven't done that, but it hasn't always been high school bats. What is it that you think they see in Eric Booth? And where does he fit?
Yeah, so Eric Booth, I mean, the first thing that stands out is the athleticism and the speed. He was, like, I don't know if he was the flat-out fastest player in the draft. He's probably flat-out the fastest, like, quality prospect in the draft, I guess is the way I would put it. But it's not this. I don't want to dump on Enrique. He's not Enrique Bradfield Jr. We aren't wondering, hey, how much impact is he going to have at the plate? Is he going to hit 5 homers a year? Is he going to get the bat knocked out of his hands? He isn't that type of guy. Like Enrique's faster. Eric Booth is more of a 70 runner rather than Enrique's 80 on the 20 to 80 scale. And, he's, Mississippi high school kid, so he hasn't faced the best competition. So he is going to need some polish, but he's shown hitting ability on the showcase circuit. It's a little bit of an unconventional swing, but he makes a lot of contact. He hits the ball hard. He's got bat speed. I think we could safely say 20 homers, 20 homer potential. He won the home run derby at the Perfect Game All-America Classic last July. Not that we're drafting guys off home run derbies. He still needs some more polish on the bases and in the field, but like this guy should be a base stealer. He should be a quality center fielder. And I keep telling the story. One of the things that really impressed me about him is so like your center fielder, like for most positions, but center fielder in particular, your least important tool is what? It's the arm. It doesn't really matter. And he had a below average arm last summer. And it really wouldn't have, like, I still think he probably would have been the number 7 overall pick if he still had a below average arm. And that's not like you weren't going to rocket up draft boards. Hey, he's throwing better. But he actually spent a lot of time on a throwing program to improve his arm strength because it was the weakest part of his game. And he now has an average arm. And, like, I don't want to be like old man Callis. These kids these days, they don't work. It wasn't like he was going out and dedicating a lot of time to something that was going to improve his draft stock. Most guys, it's like, okay, I want to see how hard I can hit the ball or how hard I can throw off the mound. And that just really impressed me. So I think this is a kid who gets it. And it's not, he is toolsy and he is fast, but there is aptitude there. There are bat to ball skills. And he has some impact in the bat too. So I thought that was a fairly obvious pick. Like it's funny the way the draft was unfolding, and we started to figure out who was going where. The Orioles pick was going to be one of 2 guys on Saturday. They were either going to get Eric Booth, and there was talk that he could have gone 4, 5, 6 range. And I think if Eric Booth was gone, they were probably going to take Drew Burris, who wound up going with the pick right after him out of Georgia Tech. So I'm not saying the draft is easy, but like that decision, I was here in the final week. Booth or Burris, Booth or Burris, Booth or Burris in that order. And then, it would have been interesting, I guess, had both of them gone off the board. But and then we would have had the case where, hey, Jackson Flores sitting there 7. Are they going to take a pitcher?
Again, I would have believed it when I saw it, and not until then. You mentioned Ty Head. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, he was, going back 3 years ago when he was coming out of high school. I'm sorry, 2 years ago because he's sophomore eligible. He was one of the best all-around athletes, and he could have probably been a 3rd-round pick. But it was one of those deals where, what he was going to get and his desire to go to NC State, it just didn't quite line up. And he has elite walk rates, elite strikeout rates. It's like a selectively aggressive approach, controls the zone, attacks strikes. He doesn't chase. He doesn't swing and miss. He has a big leg kick, so the timing of his swing gets off. So he's only a 283 hitter in 2 years at NC State. And I think it's like, you don't want to talk about, oh, we got to, overhaul this or change that. But I think in this case, because the bat to ball ability is so good, I'm not worried if they like kind of try to do some things that it's going to throw him off. And I think there's a better hitter in there once he kind of streamlines things at the plate a little bit, I guess the best way to put it. But he's, plus runner, really good center fielder. I had some people tell me they thought he was the best center field defender in the draft. It's 20/20 upside. It'll be interesting, like if both these guys develop as you hope, I'd be curious because they're both center field. Like they're both no doubt center fielders. It'll be very curious to see who winds up playing in center field.
Jim Callis with us on GCR. We mentioned that they did go pitcher in the 3rd round. That was the first time they did, and the numbers don't look great. For those of us that obviously do not pay attention the way that the Jim Callises of the world pay attention, all we can do is go look at someone's stats and we say, ooh, Dominic Voegele, 5.85 ERA, 1.4 WHIP. Now, we know Will Robertson over the weekend said, hey, look, this is college baseball, and there is no doubt that you're talking about a different type of bat. You're talking about a different world in college baseball, but still, what should we know about Dominic Voegele that maybe the numbers don't necessarily tell the full story?
Well, the numbers I think the Orioles would point to would be the 120 strikeouts in 97 innings, and that was a Kansas record. And, this is a guy who was Big 12 Conference Freshman of the Year. He was pitched for Team USA after his freshman year. And there's stuff there. He just doesn't always use it effectively. I know, especially I had a scout I talked to who doesn't have Kansas did I say K-State? He set the Kansas record with 120 strikeouts. He doesn't have Kansas, but he had a Big 12 game, and he's like, why is this guy? He already was like 8 at midseason, and he was like, why is Voegele getting hit like he is? Because it's 93, 96 to 98. Now the fastball needs some work in terms of pitch design. It's kind of a straight fastball, and he doesn't command it well. So even if you're throwing 93 to 98, if you leave it over the middle of the plate, it gets whacked. So that's kind of his biggest problem. He can throw strikes with it. He doesn't command it well. He's got a low 80s curveball with down a break. He's got a tighter, harder slider. Changeup needs some work, but like there's arm strength, there's field of spin. He's athletic. He's kind of in that sweet spot size-wise, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", which, just talking to scouts, like you don't want the big physical monsters who have the long levers and it's hard to sync things up. You don't want the small guys who maybe can't, have the endurance. So he's kind of right in that sweet spot. But I think on the upside part, Glenn, you're looking like, hey, we can help this guy and make him a starter, an effective big league starter. And I think the floor is a pretty high floor in that, look, if we can't, then he's a relief pitcher who's going to throw a lot of breaking balls, but it's good breaking balls.
Tell me about anybody else from the Orioles class that was particularly interesting to you that stood out, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, they had got a couple like those athletes, like Kevin Roberts is that kind of classic Orioles. Hey, he's a great athlete, and we don't know if he can hit kind of profile. They took him in the 4th round. I think there were first round aspirations coming in. I mean, he's a 3-sport star. He's 6'5", 215. I don't even think he turns 18. I'm looking at it. He doesn't turn 18 for 2 more weeks, so he's super young. It's a huge ceiling. It's just he struggled with the bat on the showcase circuit, which is why he went in the 4th round. Will Plunkett, the 8th rounder, is another outstanding athlete, shortstop, could have some power coming. Right hand swings good. New York high school kids, not the greatest competition. He's pretty interesting. And then on the college side, I a bunch of these guys are interesting. Jimmy Anderson's from Heartland Community College, 5th rounder. A couple of years ago, they had a scrappy middle infielder named Sam Antonacci, who's now in the big leagues with the White Sox. And this guy hits right-handed. Antonacci hits left-handed. He probably has a little bit better tools, but if you now it's junior college stats, so I wouldn't go crazy but he hit 465 with a 544 on base, a 1030 slugging percentage that led all Division II JUCO players, and hit 26 homers in 59 games. He's got decent pop. He can run a little bit, so he's kind of an aptitude, gritty middle infield type.
You brought up Joseph Dzierwa a little bit earlier, and there has been so little that has come through the pipeline for the Orioles pitching wise over the years that I almost never choose to get excited about any of it, Jim. Like I almost sort of say, well, to the same point, until it works, I'm just going to assume that none of it's going to work. Now, to be fair,
but at least he's doing it in Double-A. He's down to Double-A,
and that's sort of where I'm like, is it time for me to start saying, hey, this might be legitimate what the Orioles have in Joseph Dzierwa?
Yeah, I think you could say that. Like again, it's so he was a 2nd round pick in last year's draft out of Michigan State. I want to say, unless I'm remembering this wrong, the highest drafted pitcher out of Michigan State since Mark Mulder. Now, Mark Mulder was the number 2 overall pick, so I'm not saying he's going to be Mark Mulder. And I believe
that guy was pretty okay.
He's the highest drafted pitcher Mike Elias has had, right?
Yes.
Since he took over the club. We just added him to top 100 prospects list. He's number 100. He was our most recent ad. And I'm with you because you want the fact he's doing Double-A is interesting. So when they took him in the 2nd round, it was really interesting because he's kind of a nightmare. He's 6'8", but like I was talking before about body control, he has good body control and he has good command for a guy who's 6'8". Like it's unusual. And it's a low 3/4 arm slot. So it's a super wide angle that like makes the fastball tough. Like it's only 90 to 95 most of the time, but it has good life. It's coming out of this low angle. And then his best pitch by far is his changeup, which is a low 80s pitch with a lot of life to it that works against righties and it works against lefties too. The question is, because it's a low slot, it's harder to stay on top of breaking pitches. And so the slider and cutter kind of fringy-ish. But that was and he throws a lot of strikes. So my question coming in was, okay, he's a super interesting guy. He had a lot of success. He was a Big Ten Conference Pitcher of the Year last year. But how's this stuff going to play? Because sometimes the guys who don't spin it great get hit in pro ball. And so far, the fastball changeup combinations worked really well, and the breaking stuff's been good enough to get by. And he's throwing a ton of strikes and missing a ton of bats. And honestly, at the rate he's developed, I think we're realistically looking, some point next year, if he keeps this up, he's going to be ready for the big leagues. Like wow. I don't know Well, I mean, if he keeps this up, because he's made what is it, 9 starts or 9 outings in Double A
Seventh.
already,
Yeah.
he might spend August and September in Triple A, and then be ready at some point next year. But so far, it's been good. Like the lack of spin, like, is still a concern, but it hasn't affected him so far, and he's been a lot more dominant. Like, I liked him than I thought he necessarily could be.
The other Orioles prospect that was part of the futures game was Ike Irish, who, I don't want to say has like ripped the cover off the ball, but he seems to be on the trajectory that you would want him to be on, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Irish has been exactly what we thought he was going to
Yeah.
be. Like, I didn't think they were going to have him play McCatcher. I mean, they drafted Caden Bodine, although they traded him as well. But they have Rutschman and Basayo in the big leagues. And while you can develop guys in the minors and move them later, most of the scouts I talked to last year were like, let this guy hit, maximize the bat. Doesn't really want to catch. Don't force that. And we thought he was one of the better offensive players in the college ranks last year. He hits for average, he hits for power, he draws walks, and he's doing all that. That's a guy I would suspect very soon that they'd probably put him in Double A.
Yep.
I don't know if there's a whole lot left for him to prove out there. And he has solid arm strength. He moves, well enough in the corner outfield. But yeah, he's one where I think he's been exactly what we thought he'd be, to be honest with you. He, very good performance, but like it's probably time to see what he does in Double A now.
And then just because I do want to bring up Nate George being the top still of your Orioles prospects at MLBpipeline.com. Again, it seems like a kind of a similar story, right? He came on out of nowhere, lit the world on fire, but since then he's just continued to kind of perform at a level that makes us say, yeah, there is a there with Nate George.
Yeah, and he's been banged up this year, so he's only played 20 games in High A, but he's performed, not driving the ball for as much power this year, but against 20 games, I wouldn't read too much in that. And just our lists are a little weird. So we did our lists back in late February, early March. We have not updated them yet. The only updates are if a guy graduates to the big leagues,
Then
we'll pull him off and we'll replace him. Or if somebody, and it's similar to how Dzierwa made the top 100 prospects list, and Ike Irish too, because joined the list since the beginning of the season. I'm not so sure that when we overhaul these lists, we're actually going to update the top 10s before the trade deadline, then update the whole list and add draft picks and all that. Nate George probably won't be the number one prospect at that point. I don't do the Orioles list. Jonathan Mayo does. I'll be curious. Like, I would think Eric Booth would probably be number one at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But how you line up Dzierwa, George, and Irish, I'm kind of interested to see what he does with that. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be less bullish on Nate George. He's missed a bunch of the season. And so we haven't seen him be as electric as he was last year. But no, he's legit.
And then is there anyone else right now in the system who perhaps has caught your eye, you're paying a little bit more attention to?
I will say, I mean, not that I didn't think he was a good player, because I mean, he was a Golden Spikes Award winner and he went fairly high. I think he was the Orioles had so many picks I lose track. I think he was a supplemental first round pick.
Yeah.
But Wehiwa Aloy, I mean, he's another guy who's hitting very well in High A. I mean, I would think he's probably going to get to Double A pretty soon. So that one's kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Luis De Leon got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he's pitching better. Yeah, I just strike throwing for him. He's obviously a very talented guy. Boston Bateman has looked intriguing. JT Quinn, the other pitcher they took high last year, has pitched well in High A. So yeah, I feel like overall it feels like it's been a good year for the system, and we haven't done our farm system rankings yet. And I don't know how those will shake out. But I was talking to somebody else about the Orioles, and it's like, and I'm not criticizing the trade. Like, if they don't make the Shane Baz trade, their farm system looks a lot better because Caden Bodine's tearing it up.
Yep.
And they traded Slater DeBrun, and Michael Ferret's pitching well. And I forget who the fourth player was in the trade. But anyway, I understand why they made the trade, trying to find pitching. And I'm not even criticizing the trade. But when we do the farm system rankings, you could certainly make the case that they would rank even higher. I mean, the point of the farm system is to help the big league club. So that's why they made the trade. But if they don't make that trade, the farm system is going to look a lot stronger.
I'll wrap with this, Jim, because I still don't know that it's wise for the Orioles to even consider buying. I know they won 4 straight going into the deadline, but they were playing the Royals at home. Like, I don't want to overreact to that. I still don't think they're a very good team. That said, if there's anything that I would be interested in, it would be controllable pitching, right? Like I think you always need controllable pitching. Joe Ryan, if he's available, has got to be the top pitcher available because of that, right? Like because he has another year of control. Do the Orioles have enough that like if there was a bidding war that they could even get into that water, or am I wasting my time hoping for that?
No, I mean you could, and I mean who knows? I mean I get what you're saying, like, and I agree with you. Like you're almost kind of like better. Like if they make a move, it should be to serve 27, but also the future. It shouldn't just be let's go get Scooble, and he's gone at the end of the year. That'd be full. But no, I mean, again, I'm not saying they would do this. It's like how comfortable are you giving up? Like would you give up one of Nate George and Ike Irish? Would you give up one of Dzierwa or Luis De Leon? Would you give up a third prospect? I mean, they had like most teams have the ammunition to go get just about anyone, except for maybe the very worst farm systems. It just, are you willing to put Boston Bateman in that deal? Like how much of a stomach do you have? And again, I don't know. I'm always terrible at predicting what guys are going to get land in trades, like what the going rate for Joe Ryan would be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think it'd probably cost you two pretty good prospects.
You would think.
And a decent third one. So I'll ask you, Glenn, if I'm the Twins, I'm like, okay, you want Joe Ryan, Glenn. Give me Ike Irish, Luis De Leon, and Wehiwa Aloy. Or Boston Bateman.
My answer would be
if
you're not extending Adley Rutschman and you're not trading him away, then go do it because you need 2027 to be your year. You need to have this. Now, if you're going to extend Adley Rutschman, if you're trading him this year, that's a different conversation. But if you're just holding on to Adley Rutschman going into 2027 and hoping for the best, then you need to do everything in your power to load up that roster for 2027. So my answer would then be yes in that scenario, Jim.
So anyway, they do have the ammunition. It would take a bite out of their farm system. Probably not. I feel like you get more for guys in the offseason when like they the Rays did for Boz, but it would take a significant bite out of the system.
Jim, what all can I plug for you, sir?
Just we got all kinds of coverage coming. I was alluding, we're still kind of wrapping up draft stuff, and we're gonna update our top 10s, I think by the end of next week, which seems daunting. And then we'll have signings coverage, draft deadline coverage. We'll have a new top 100 list and overhaul the top 30s. And that's all at MLB Pipeline, which is part of MLB.com. And because we're part of MLB.com, it's all free. None of it's behind a paywall. And then on Twitter at Jim Callis MLB, I do try to keep up with the signings, and I try to tweet a lot of the stuff we're doing. So yeah, I feel like we have another month of hard work ahead, and then it slackens up a little bit, and we can enjoy the pennant races. And a little bit more relaxed atmosphere. But we got a lot coming over the next month.
We are hoping there will be such a thing here in Baltimore, but we are not sure if that's going to be the case or not. Jim, always appreciate you. Know how insanely busy you are this time of year. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, great talking to you. Thanks, Glenn.